but to millions of his supporters, half a dozen of them who've already tried, as you mentioned, a woman in Texas had a plan to harm Judge Chutkan.
It's about damn time that someone put a gag on him, because it's about our national security. It's about everyone's security in this country, not just political leaders, not just people in this trial. This entire environment in the country is being driven by this guy who is endangering our national security. You say, what if something happened? Something did happen. January 6th happened. They tried to overthrow our government violently. A guy broke into Nancy Pelosi's house and hit her husband with a hammer. There's a conspiracy to kidnap and kill a governor. It's happening all the time, and it's being driven by this irresponsible, aggressive, violent rhetoric coming from someone who used to be the commander-in-chief and being backstopped by people like Mike Flynn, the national security advisor, and it's endangering all of us. So it's about time that someone did it. I told you before, I thought it was going to be the Justice Department or someone like that. It's not going to be the Republicans. It's not going to be the Democrats. These are the guardrails in America hitting. I wish they had been hit sooner, and it's not enough. But finally, someone is taking action to keep America safe, because that's ultimately what this is about.
Televised town hall on May 10th, 2023. They're referring to the CNN town hall. His supporters listen to him like no one else. He understands full well his power. He boasts of that power, and he could turn it down at any time, but he chooses not to.
He's issuing orders.
Well, and I was about to say to you, we focused a lot of leaders who had followers who represented a threat.
It's a culture of intimidation. Yeah. He has created a culture of intimidation. And the question for the media is, in some levels, do you show the car crash that gets ratings? Because that's a part of this, too, because it does get ratings and people do watch. And there is a responsibility to not show the car crash sometimes and to not amplify the hatred and the violence and the direct orders to do things like take a Capitol. So there's a lot of responsibility that needs to be shouldered around this country, because the threat, as you've underscored, is to everyone.
Some people have cooking shows. I have wrestling with how to cover the threat show. So we'll have this conversation. It'll be messy, but with your help, we'll continue to have this conversation. Constitutionally protected speech. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito issued a brief stay of the lower court ruling until the end of next week and ordered the Republican attorneys general of Louisiana and Missouri, who originally brought the case, to file any response to the DOJ's application by Wednesday. We're back with Charlie and Paul. Paul, this feels incredibly high stakes. COVID isn't the only example, but I'm thinking again back to the election lies. I mean, if you can't, as a government, say no, Trump lost, I don't know that you still live in a democracy.
No, it's all intertwined in this culture of intimidation. And we're talking a lot about Trump's free speech. But Trump's free speech is repressing everyone else's free speech. And that's the real issue here. There's always a struggle between security and free speech. That's been true since the beginning of our country. But we keep hitting these points where it's clear that he and this ecosystem, something I've called the American insurgency in the past, is continuing to repress common knowledge, science, good order and discipline, courtesy, all the basic things in our society, and they're hitting at it with all points. So they're endangering your health, they're endangering your national security, they're disrupting school boards. The point we talked about earlier, I think, is really, really critical here. What we also don't talk about is how many people face direct threats every single day. Every elected official, pretty much, especially people like Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger. Think about Mitt Romney talking about how much security he needs just to do his job. But people in our business, too, like anybody who goes on TV and speaks out against these folks, you worry about walking to your car on the way out. That's the culture that we have created, that he has created in this country. And it goes all the way down to the school board. People are afraid to speak up in a school board because they're worried they're going to get jumped outside. That's the command climate that Trump has created, the culture of intimidation he has created. And it goes all the way down to your vaccines. And I think a bigger point here, he was also sympathizing with Putin this week, right? And Putin loves this. Our enemies love this. Imagine how bin Laden would have celebrated nobody taking a vaccine or people, attacking each other out in the open, direct attacks on our politicians. This is our enemy's dream, and it's all intertwined into what should be a national security priority and not just a political discussion.